Hey everyone, this is Daniel, and in today's video we're going to talk about update file on SharePoint using Power Automate. So just to give you a little bit of a synopsis, there's a scenario where you will be getting emails and there's a link on that email, and currently you have to manually click on that email link, download a file, and then you upload that to SharePoint. Well, thanks to the magic of Power Automate, I'm going to show you how we can automate the whole thing, where Power Automate automatically clicks on that link and it uploads that file to a SharePoint document library. And if in that scenario where you already have an existing file, it goes ahead and updates that too. So now that you've understood the gist of this blog over here, I'm going to walk you through that. But first, here's my intro. So this was actually a real world scenario. So I'm going to actually walk you through a conversation of how I even got to this point over here. So what happened was somebody, and I'm going to give that person a name, I'm going to call her Sue. Sue actually reached out to me and said that, hey Daniel, I have a daily task which I think Power Automate can, well, automate it. So can you help? And I was like, hey Sue, sounds interesting. What do you have in mind? So she came back and said, I have an email with a link to a document that comes in daily. I'd like to download that file and have it uploaded to my SharePoint document library. Basically, she just wants to automate that process because it's a mundane task that she does daily. So I said, sure, do you need to type in a username and password to simply click on that link? Because I wanted to make sure that is there an authentication process which requires manual intervention. But the good thing is Sue responded back and saying, nah, I just click on it and it automatically downloads. So my response to that was, gotcha. Yep, that's definitely doable. But we will need some additional license for this. Your Microsoft 365 or M365 alone won't be sufficient. So are you cool with that? And Sue responds back saying, yeah, I'm cool with that. Just one more thing. I get an email every day. So I'd like the flow to simply replace the existing file that I have. And is that possible? And so I responded back saying, well, that does complicate things a bit, but I think we can accomplish that. So when do you want to get started? So that was literally a conversation that I had. And it was thanks to the power of Power Automate, we were able to successfully accomplish this. So based on that conversation, the key takeaways were that, first of all, I need to trigger flows using incoming email. So that's the big thing. Second thing is we will have to make an HTTP call. And because HTTP connector is a premium connector, we will need at least a Flow User 1 or a Power Apps User 1 plan. At least that's what we need over there. Second is have a SharePoint document library. And because Sue came back with that requirement is that, hey, if there's an existing file already there, then I want you to update that. And because of that one big reason, we need a temporary folder over there. So because now we talked about the scenario, I want to actually talk about the main actions in the flow that we'll be using. And the first one is HTML2 Text, because there's an email coming in and the link is in the body of the email. So what I want to do is I want to first convert that HTML body of the email into a text. And for that, we're going to use the HTML2 Text because we'll extract the URL from the text. Second thing is we're going to use the HTTP action over there. Now, again, I called out before that this is a premium action over there. So you need to have that additional license over there. Next is the SharePoint Create action, because this one is we're going to go ahead and take that file and we're going to create a file. By create means that I'm going to just take the file and add it. And that's the file that we got from the HTTP request. And remember that scenario where she said that if there's an existing file, I want you to go and replace it. Well, the create file doesn't have that option over there. So we're going to temporarily store it in a temporary folder location over there. And then afterwards, we're going to use the SharePoint Move, because the SharePoint Move allows you the flexibility to take that existing file from that temporary location, and when we move it to the actual destination folder, there is that option over there called replace. And that's going to be the big and the main reason why we do that. So now that you know about the actions over there, the 4 big actions, I want to spend some time specifically on the most important expression that we'll be using, and that's the split expression over there. Expressions are basically a type of formulas that you use in Power Automate Flow. So what you see over here is actually a good overview of the email body. And the reason that you see over here, you see that download monthly report over here. that is actually the link. But when you do the HTML to text transfer, the beauty of it is that link is extracted from there, and it is gone ahead and put it inside the bracket. So initially in the the rich text or the HTML body, you would have just seen monthly download with an underline over there, which is actually the URL. But once you extract it to text, this is also what you see over there. Very, very important piece. So that's why I say email body in plain text. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to use the split body. And the split function is we're going to split that email body, and we're going to split it based on the close bracket, which is this one over there, close block, the box over there. So that's why once you've done that, it breaks it down into actually two sections. This first section is one section because it's split up. It's split based on this close brackets over there, or the closed box. So this becomes one section, and then this becomes one section. So the first split function, that's what it does. But I'm going to take that split and I'm going to put it inside the first function. So have you noticed the difference over here? This is what it seemed before, but I took that and I added inside the first. So the yellow piece over here, including the closed brackets, that's a new piece. And what I'm saying is that whatever was the first chunk of the split, that's the one I'm going to take away. So let me go back before. There were actually two sections, right? There was this one, which is in the light blue, and then this one, which was in the yellow. Now, using the first, I've only captured the first section of it. So it's kind of making sense now, is that how I'm taking that main email, converting that into just the text, and then I'm starting to split it. And that's the split function that I'm using. And I'm using a combination of split, first, and last to just get that URL. So let's continue though, because we don't stop over here. There's still a lot of stuff that I need to clean up. So I did the split, I went and picked up the first, but the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do another split. Now I got to do another split left on the opening box over here, because that's the only thing that was left. So now, once I've used the split with this opening box, now I'm going to break the text down into two more sections. The initial piece, which is all in yellow, and then the remaining piece which is all in the blue. So when I did that, and I went ahead and now said that, okay, I've gone ahead and done the split, I just want the first section, the last section of it. The last section being this last section. So now that I've gone ahead and grabbed that, thanks to this combination, which was initially split, then getting at the first section of the box, doing another split based on the closed box, and then just getting the last piece, I finally got the URL that I needed. So again, just as a recap, the key thing was that I had to go ahead and convert the HTML to text. That's how I saw the URL. The URL came inside the body. So it came inside the body, which was the opening of the brackets and opening of box and closing of the box. And then using the combination of the split and the first, and then another split with the last, this was the full formula that I used, and I finally got that URL. So this was actually a main, one of the big features of this entire process that I'm going to show you. So now that you understand the whole thing is the actions that I'm using and the main expression, let's actually start building the flow, all right? So I'm going to get out of my slide deck. I'm going to close this off. And what I want to show you is the actual email that's coming through. So I'm getting email from this user, and this is literally the body of the email. The subject says monthly report for your purchases. It has a date stamp to it. There's a little bit of a body, and there's that URL. You see that URL which I talked about, the one we're going to do some magic with? That's what it is. And then finally, this section. Now here, this piece is all part of Outlook. So it didn't come with the email. Literally what came with the email was the subject, the to, and then this was the entire body. So those were the main things. I'm going to go ahead and initially delete this because when we do an example, we don't get confused. So let's now jump into my flow piece over here and let's start building that flow. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to click on the instant from blank. It says live demo of extracting URL from email. And it is going, actually, for right now, let me just highlight that, Control C. I'm going to skip on it. And I'll paste that name over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and capture Office. You use the Office 365 Outlook. If you don't see that, just type in Office 365, and this is what you're going to see. All right. Now, the example that I want to walk you through is basically using the initial trigger is when a new email arrives. And now I'm using the version 3 of this, the V3. So go ahead and you do the same one as well. If you don't see that, there's two ways to find it. Click on the see more, and then you can scroll down, or you can just go ahead and search for when a new email. So it'll show up over there, but since the list is small, it just shows up. So that's what I'm going to do. Grab that. Now let's think about this for a minute. We are triggering this flow when an email comes in. Now, if you're an user, which is pretty much a lot of people now, if you get tens or hundreds of emails in a day, for every email that came through, that flow is gonna trigger, and you don't want that to happen because that's gonna cause a lot of work for you or confusions for you. Plus, this flow can just go rogue just like that. So we want to kind of put in some conditions. So in addition to selecting this trigger, I'm gonna go and click Advanced or Show Options over there. I'm going to use this section on that. All right. So the first thing is when I came in and I saw that email, it actually came from someone called Gabriel Christian, and we had his entire email address. So take that email address when you're trying to use this. Take the email address of the to person and put it over here. So I know who that person is, and that's why I'm going to go ahead and type that person's full email address over here. And this is what it is. It's coming in from here. Now also, who is it coming to? I apologize. It's not the to, it's coming to me. So I got to get my email address over here. Oof, made a silly mistake over there. Don't make that mistake. Just make sure that to is who is it coming to. And that Gabriel, from who it's coming from, that comes over here. Made a little mistake over there, but hey, you know what? I was just testing your knowledge to see if you're really paying attention. All right? Just kidding. I made that mistake. Okay. So now the subject. Now the subject of that email that came in, that was the important one. Okay. So I'm just going to go and grab that again just so that we see it. The email that came in was basically just telling me, go back to deleted items. This one, that was the subject. The subject says monthly report for your purchases. So I am just going to grab this section of it, because what happens is sometimes this date can keep changing. It appears to me that the date stamp is always based on the month. So what if next month that date stamp changes, which is why I can't go ahead and keep taking that, because that's going to change, which means I want to keep my flow as dynamic as possible. So I'm just going to take the first section of it. So therefore the subject, it says string to look for in the subject line. It's not saying that the exact string. It's just saying I need a string to look for in the subject line. So now I'm just going to go ahead and take that first chunk of it, and I haven't added any of that date. So this three combinations really helps to monitor the email that's coming in, but only run the flow if these three conditions are met. The condition is, who is it going to? Well, it's going to me. So that we went and put that in to. Who is it coming from? It's coming from this external user, which is Gabriel Christian in this case over here. And then what's the subject filter? The subject filter is having that section over there. So this three combination really did the great job over there. All right. Now let's go to the next step over here, or the new step. And now we're going to look for the HTML2 text. Now, if you remember in my slide deck that I showed, HTML2 text. It's basically this one over there, content conversion, HTML to text. It is in preview, but trust me, you can go ahead and use this one over here. What we're doing in this HTML conversion is actually going ahead and the body extracting that URL from just the text. And that's how I was able to get that URL inside those two box brackets over there. Now that was inside the body. So I got to go over here and I got to grab the body, which is right there, the body of the message. All right. And that's all I want to do is I want to go ahead and get that text. Got the trigger and I want to grab that. So this is actually a good point for me to now save it. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to intentionally add it into just a compose function. And what the compose function does, action does, is it serves two purposes. I'm going to be using this compose function. And so when I use it to call on the other section, especially when I'm extracting the URL, all I see is just this section of the body, and I don't go ahead and, grab this because this provides me way too much information. Over here, all I'm going to get is I'm just going to go ahead and grab the text version of that body. So that's why the compose just does a little bit of cleanup for the remaining steps that I have to do. But the second thing is great is that for people like us who are actually building the flow, this is a good troubleshooting step as well. So in the future, for whatever reason, if this doesn't work, you've already got a troubleshooting step added over there. Now, I also am going to go ahead and rename this. I'm going to rename that to HTML body because this is going to come in handy for the next step. All right. The naming convention is going to come in handy when I start putting in expressions and I'm able to identify, because I'm going to add some multiple compose steps over there. helps me to understand which compose one it is. Okay, so we've got that. We've got the compose. We see the entire URL coming in. Now I got to go ahead and add another compose, because this is where we're going to do the extraction. We're going to do the split and the first, and then split and the last. All right. So I come over here, and I'm going to now put the in. Come on, mouse. Come here, and already exists. In the expression, I'm going to first start with the split. In the expression, I'm going to first start with split. So I'm going to come to expressions over here, and I'm going to type in split, and there split shows up. And if I do an open brackets, it automatically closes the bracket. But the cursor right now blinks inside the bracket, and you see this big distraction. It helps you define it, but it's also distraction. So to get rid of the distraction, you, with your right key, you basically move outside that. See, I've actually moved outside it, and then you bring it back inside, and now you no longer see that distraction. It's a little bit of tidbit that I'm throwing out over here. Okay, so I got inside the split, I need to add this body. So once you're inside over here, you go to content, the dynamic contents, and you click over here. So that shows up, but you're splitting it based on something. And in this case, if you remember the slide deck, I'm first doing the split based on the closing of the brackets or closing of that box. So again, I click on comma, I click on the single separate over here, and here is going to be the close brackets. So that is what I'm doing over here. All right. So the first thing is just I did the split. That was the first step. In this case, what am I splitting it for? Because of the split, which one do I want? Again, go back and before, and we see the first section is I want the, including the entire URL. So I'm going to get the first section. So I got to click on the open of the brackets over here, and I type first, and I click on that, go back over here, and I just close the brackets, right? So I've gotten now the first section of it. I go ahead and capture the entire text before, including the URL. But now what I want to do is I want to do a second split, but the second split is going to be based on the opening of the brackets. So I come back over here, I open up the brackets, and I type in another split right there, go back to the end, and I do another comma, and here I'm going to do the opening of the brackets, not curly brackets, the closed brackets. And here, so I've gone ahead and closed that, but I just want the last piece of it. The last piece is the URL. Again, I just showed you that in the slide decks. If you're a little confused, and I understand this can get a little confusing, so you pause over here, go back before and see, hey Daniel, in the slide decks you showed, okay, I went and split it, perfect, split it based on the comma. Yep, I got the first chunk. Now I went, got the first chunk of it. Now I got to do another split, and I'm going to split based on the opening brackets, perfect. So the first, even the introduction piece of the text of the box goes away, perfect. And then I went ahead and just grabbed the URL, and to get just the URL, I use last and close it, and I hit OK. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pause over here, and let's run an email. I'm going to intentionally sit over here, and through the power of magic, I'm going to actually send an email. It's not magic. I really have another flow running. Just send that information coming over here. So any second now, you're going to actually see that coming through. I'm going to just click over here, go to my inbox. We will wait over here, and I'm going to run the flow. The flow is automatically running, and you will see one show up over here any second. Boom, it showed up over there. Now, this is what the body of the email looks like. Now let's come over here. Let's actually get out, and you should see, yep, 7 seconds ago, it just ran. So I'm going to click on that. Your flow ran successfully. Woohoo! Now here's the email that came through. Remember, we went ahead and did some filtering, so that's perfect. Now here is where we did the expression from the HTML to the text. And see, that's the brackets that's coming through. Perfect. Now we went ahead and captured that into the HTML body, so we see that. And now thanks to the whole compose magic that we did, the explanation that I walked you through, we just got the URL. So remember, this was awesome. You've actually achieved 50% of the work right here because you got the URL. That's the big thing. And the URL was the pure magic of split with first, split with last. And as we were cleaning up, we got this entire, just the URL over here. So you've already achieved a huge step forward over there. Literally 50% of your work is already done. But let's continue moving forward, all right? So now I'm going to come in, and We're now going to make that HTTP call. Now, I do want to call out one more time. The HTTP step over here is only for premium license. The reason I want to say that is, it's HTTP, it's premium. So if you are coming in as an Office 365 user with just a business plan or an enterprise plan, even Enterprise 5, E5, this is not going to work. In fact, you will probably be still making this flow, and so far you may not get any messages, but the moment you try to run it, it's going to say, I can't let you run it because you don't have premium license. So I want to give you this heads up right up front, is if you are going to use this HTTP action over here, which we are, you will need at least either a flow one, which is definitely cheaper, or you can go with the Power Apps plan one, and the app one way, or there's a flow way, a flow license, or there is an app license. Both of them will give you that, the flexibility as a premium connectors. So I'm just going to click on that over here, and then the method is going to be get, which kind of makes sense, right? Because all I'm doing is I'm getting the file from that URL. So get just makes sense. Now, the other thing I want to do is I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to rename that compose to extract the URL. All right, just come over here. Let's click on that. Yep, it gives me a little error, but that's fine. So I click on the URL piece, and I'm going to use this one. So see, it's important that you name it correctly, because that way you know that which compose it is. So now I won't get confused saying that, oh man, which one do I use? Is it compose 1 or compose 2? I don't get that confused because I know the compose I want to use is extract the URL. So it's very important that you name these. All right, went ahead and got that. I'm going to save it. Now the next compose I want to do is just see. Okay, that's all I want to do is I want to see it. And again, the C is actually helpful for viewing it for the sake of this demo. All right, and not just for the sake of this demo, is when I was building this, I was troubleshooting it, testing, and the compose is literally one of the most important tools for me to troubleshoot and build it. So even though if you are as a viewer coming and seeing that, you know what, Daniel really didn't need this HTML one, he actually kind of didn't even need, doesn't need this compose one. So why is he adding it? Again, it's just because of the maker of the flow. I want to see at different steps how things are working and kind of get into that habit as well, right? Just to see, and this is fantastic for troubleshooting. So I'm going to come over here, and this is the place also where you can see the beauty of this HTTP one. Now, when you remember in the slide deck, I showed you this big, long URL that was there. And that URL had three things. It actually had the URL of the Excel spreadsheet or the file itself, but it also had the authentication information. The authentication information, it had the authentication and it had a timeline. And most of the URLs that you get with this type of information to download comes with those three things. You will have the URL where the file is. That'll be the first chunk. The second chunk will also be where the authentication is, which is the username and a password. And then the third chunk will actually be a timeline. So a really strong, powerful URL with this type of information always has those three things. Once again, the file location, authentication location, and a timestamp. Sometimes you might even have a cookie number over there or a trigger or a token or something, but these are the main three things, the file, authentication, and a timestamp over there. So I'm going to go ahead, and this time all I need is the body. And that's the beauty of this HTTP connector, is it gives me all three. The headers, which has got all to do with the tokens and stuff like that, and the authentication. It tells me even the status code. The status code is, hey, was the connection, the get function, did that work successfully? Or did it fail? Things like that. I just want the body. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to now rename that to, say, just the body. All right. And just by habit, I go ahead and save that. And let's actually do another test. So I'm going to come back over here, and through the power of magic, again, I already have another flow running over there. So I'm going to click over there. We'll come back over here. Let's go ahead and delete this one so we don't get confused. I go and run the flow. When I run the flow, an email is going to show up. Email showed up over here. Let's see, did our flow run? I'm going to give it a second, and I'm going to refresh it. Yep, 8 seconds ago. Click on it, and now we've got some more things to see. Let's just focus on, we already seen the URL. That's a nice URL over there. Made the HTTP call to get everything work. But now over here, when I click on it, it actually shows me the content and the content type. And if I actually click on this one over here, it'll show me all the information that it's pulling. But everything is successful and the information is coming through. So that's that's all good, right? Let's keep moving forward. Now, what I'm going to do is now we're going to start focusing on the SharePoint piece over here. So on the SharePoint piece, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to add the action. I'm going to type in SharePoint, select that SharePoint over here, and we're going to use the create file action. And right, it is create file here, or you can just type in create and it gives me create file. Now there's sometimes a confusion over here. Is Daniel, you're putting in a create file, but you're not creating the file. You're correct. But technically, I'm taking the data from that HTTP and I'm creating a new file into the SharePoint. So technically that action name is correct. But between you and me, in just layman terms when we're discussing, you're absolutely right. We're not creating a file. We're kind of just, uploading a new one or adding a new one, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and take care of my stuff. Come over here. If I don't see my URL, I'll just go grab that URL. So that I don't see it, let me just go over here, go to my file location. I'm in my SharePoint site. Let me just go grab that URL and come over here, enter my URL. And in your case, it might be just, you already have the URL, so you don't have to go and do all the extra magic that I did. What I'm going to do is I'll first come in and I'll just go drop it into my documents library. I'll just do that, right? And then the name of the file, there's going to be another interesting thing. So let's for now, I'm going to show you that I know that the data that's coming through is an Excel spreadsheet. It's basically a XLSX. So what I could do is I could actually go ahead and just go to my email, grab the subject .xlsx, and that's my file name. The file name is the subject that's coming in and XLSX. And then the content is basically that body. Now I can do that if I know 100% sure if that file extension is always going to be an Excel spreadsheet. If it's not going to be an Excel spreadsheet and if it changes, then you're going to have to use that split functions again over here. Extracting the URL, you're going to have to do some magic to make sure that now you extract that file name over there as well, all right? And there is some tricks to that. It's basically the exact same style. And if you have some time, I'll show you what that is. So for now, I'm just going to make sure that the file gets created. So let's do a quick test. Let's stop over here. And we'll go ahead and now, again, through the power of magic, this new email will come through. So let me go back to my new, the flow just to make sure that it runs. So we just ran. I did the magic. A new email is just going to come through over here. It came through. Nice. Email came through. It has the link over here. Now let's go and take a look at our flows. I go back over here. I click on my flow. The third one just ran. It seems to have been completely successful, which is great. Let's go back to our document library. Now, it did a couple of things. First of all, in the URL, I just selected the document library. So it put that right at the root over here. Now, there's this one problem that I personally have seen that running in my tenant is that, remember, in the file name, I put in that entire subject.xlsx. Some reason that extension .xlsx gets deleted the first time, and I'll prove that to you. I'm going to come over here, I click on edit. I come back to the file name over here. See? You know that I just put in XLSX. I did it. You can rewind back and see that, but it disappears. So I'm just going to do that XLSX. I'm going to save it. And this time, just as a test, I'll just come back over here. I'll use an existing one. I'll just run that. And it's running. It went through the HTTP call. It goes ahead and grabs the body and everything. And then it's now creating the file. And once that is successful, let's go and take a look. It says flow is successful. And come back over here and see the second time now it went ahead and captured the Excel spreadsheet. So if I click on it, it is so successful that it opens up in the Excel spreadsheet, on my SharePoint over here. And this is just some, raw data that I have. So that's not the point. The point was two things. First of all, is for some reason, the first time that dot value always disappears. It's happening to me a lot. It may happen to you as well. And I wanted to show that to you, that if this happens to you, just go back into into your flow and just add that over there. All right. So I'm going to now go ahead and delete this. Now, what I want to show you is the second and the last option. The last option on the flow piece is that they wanted us to go ahead and now save it directly into a folder. That's what Sue has said. She says she manually downloads it and she uploads it into a folder. And her second thing was that she uploads the same copy. So if she overwrites the copy, when she's updating it, if there's an existing one, she overwrites it because she only wants the latest version. So let's test that because there's going to be a problem and I want you to see what that problem is. So I'm going to now come back to this create file and we're going to change the location. Remember, the folder path that Sue wants is now inside the document library. She's going to put it in the 2020. So I come over here and I'm going to find that folder path. All right, I'm going to go into my shared documents and it's loading. And here it is. That's the place that she wants. So I'm going to save it. And now we'll, again, through the power of magic, we will have an email magically show up over there. And I'm going to already make some hypothesis. My hypothesis is the flow will run the first time. Second time it's going to fail. All right. If you don't believe me, watch. I'm going to now do sending it over here. I go ahead and send the flow. I mean, an email is going to magically appear. All right. The email magically appeared. No big deal. You've already seen this part over here. We come in. All right. 5 seconds. So it ran. I mean, it's running. Let's go in. I bet you by the time, okay, flow ran successfully. The create item over here this time actually went into the new folder path. So I come in over here and now inside the documents, inside 2020, it went ahead and saved it over here. Perfect. In fact, just to make confusions, no confusion, I'm going to delete this off. Again, I'm not doing anything wrong. All I did was I just deleted the old one, which was testing. But the last flow that ran, the first time, it came over here. Now let's do something else. I'm going to make sure that through the power of magic, as another email comes through. And now let's see if my hypothesis works. Because remember, the first hypothesis was it will run successfully. My second hypothesis is going to fail the second time. So let me do that. All right. So that was the first email that came through. I'm going to keep it this way so you can count that this was the first time. Now I'm going to go ahead and run another email. Run to make sure another email comes through. We come over here. Bam. That's the second email. All right. But now let's go and see what happens. Came over here. Failed. Well, first thing is I was right. So woohoo, I was correct. But why did it fail? And that is because of that create file action. So let's go and see what happens. In the create file action, it comes in over here and it gives you this the error is simple. In fact, it's a good error. It's one of those errors which actually help you understand, not those errors with that big long information which doesn't make any sense. This error details actually make sense. And it says a file with the name SharePoint documents, blah, 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 already exists. And that was the reason why it failed. So all said and done, it was really our fault. We were trying to replace an existing file. And it's not even Power Automate's fault. It's actually a process in SharePoint where when you go ahead and update to replace an existing file, it comes up and says, hey, that file's already updated, already available. Do you want to go and change that? So when you're doing it on SharePoint, when you're updating a file, it requires a human intervention over there. But through Power Automate, we are trying to make it, no touch whatsoever. No human intervention is required. So how do we get past this error? And the way you get past is actually another beautiful workaround. And that beautiful workaround is using the move file technique. So here is how we're going to tweak this process. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to leave this. Well, let me delete that so we can go through that two hypotheses all over again. So the first thing we're going to do is now when the file comes in, that create file, I'm going to drop it in this do not delete folder. All right. So I'm going to make sure, in fact, when you're doing something, when you're playing with this or you want this as a real world scenario, name your folder with big caps and make it prominent. It says do not delete so that people will see it. It's like, I don't think I should be touching this folder. Or if I'm in this folder, I don't want to delete anything. Make it that prominent. So that's what we're going to do. The create file now is going to be in the do not delete. But as an additional action, we're going to also do move file. So let's do that. First, let me go into my edit over here. All right. And in my edit, I'm going to do the same thing. All I need to do is I just need to tweak this folder path location. Come back over here to the shared documents. I come back up. Didn't do that. Click on that. Shared documents. Inside the shared documents, I put it in the do not delete. All right. Right over there. So now I'm going to save that as is. Next I'm going to do is I'm going to use the move file, and the move file is part of SharePoint. So I click on SharePoint, select that over here, and then here sometimes I just see the click on see more, and I type in move, and I get the move file. Now the current site address is the same one, so let me just go and grab my URL right over here. So Control C, did that. If you are, basically what I'm doing is, for some reason in mine, I am not seeing it show up over here in my already existing list. So I just click, I go down, enter a custom value, and I paste it. Now the file identifier, very important piece. The file identifier is, it needs to identify this file path. Now when you look at it, it says, okay, it needs a file identifier, which is kind of similar to file ID or item ID. When I've used that, I've been getting errors. It basically error says it can't find that file. What you need to do is use path. That's the trick thing. Is that basically the path is the path of the file or folder. That's what we need over here. All right. Now the destination is going to be again the same as this one, as that destination. So I come back over here. I enter custom value. For me, you might just be able to select one of those. Actually, I now see it, so I'm just going to select that. And then the destination folder is same as shared documents. And over here, I'm going to put it in my 2020. Go back, select 2020. And here is the fantastic and very important feature available. It says, if another file is already there, pick one of those options available. And lo and behold, there is one called move with a new file name, or even better, replace. And replace is what we're going to do. This functionality is not available in the create file. See, it's not there, but it is there in the move file. This is why I've gone ahead and created that temporary folder, dropped the file over there, or the spreadsheet over there. Then I'm using the move file, and the move file I'm using, if another file is already there, replace it. I know. It's sometimes I've shown this to some people and it's like, why wasn't this there in the create file? It's like, I'm telling you, if you are a person similar to Sue, it's like, Sue, I don't know why that is there, but I do know a workaround. The workaround is in the move file, so all is still good. You've got both our thumbs up. Now let's do some testing. Now, recap. When we did the first style with the create file, what were my two hypotheses? My two hypotheses, first time the flow is going to work, second time the flow is going to fail. Now I've added this fix, all right, this workaround. So my two hypotheses are, it's going to work the first time, and it's also going to work the second time. So let's test it now, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and now delete these two tests ones from the previous one. I'm going to come back to my magic to run these, get those magical emails. So let me go back over here, and I'm going to come over here, click on run flow, and the first email is going to come through, all right? There's the first email. So we're coming over here, and we should see 2 seconds. Perfect. Actually, it's running. This one shouldn't fail. I just come over here. It is still running. It's at the last section. It created the file and is going ahead and moving the file. So it's the last section was what took it that few extra seconds over there, right? So it's finishing through. It's going ahead and moving the file. And it ran successfully. So if you have thought this through, what's going to happen is I come over here now. I've gone back to my SharePoint site. I've gone to my document library. I come over here and I see that new file. See, a few seconds ago. And if you remember the steps we did in the flow, this one should actually be empty. And it is empty. Because remember, we didn't do any copy and paste. We actually moved it. All right. So make sure that you put this do not delete, because somebody's going to come in over here and say the folder is kind of empty. So why am I not deleting it? Don't worry, the folder always gets filled for that few extra seconds, all right? So it's the temporary placeholder. All right, so first hypothesis, it ran successfully, very good. But in this case, my second hypothesis was it's still going to run. So let's go and check. So I'm going to again through the abracadabra magic, words are not coming out of my mouth. I'm going to run another flow, all right? Another email is going to come through. And let me go back to my email, and there's the second one that came through. See, the first one was at 2 minutes before. Second one came through, and now the second one is going to be successful as well. See, it's running. This is the first one. Second one is running. Let's go in over here. It's probably on the last step of moving the file. It's running. It's going to finish up. The flow ran successfully. So I come back over here into my SharePoint site. Again, this one should be empty. It is empty, but it went ahead and replaced it again a few seconds ago. So we got it to work. We were able to overcome this one slight change when in the SharePoint's Create file, it didn't work over there, but it works. We had to use a combination of Create file action and the Move file, and we were able to successfully get through this running over there. So I want you to kind of sit back and just give you a recap of what all we accomplished thanks to the power of Power Automate. We were able to touch and using HTTP, we were able to go ahead and just get the link of this, first using the extract from an email body, using the extract to text and the power of splits with the first and splits with the last, we got the URL from an email body. I don't care how big that email body is, because this combination of split and first and split and last, we can get that URL. We got the URL. And in this case, the URL didn't need authentication because everything was in the URL. We ran the HTTP action. HTTP action was able to get me the body of the email, which means it just downloads the entire file. Then I went ahead and uploaded that file to a temporary location in SharePoint, and I was able to move that file, and it automatically updates that to a SharePoint existing file in the document library. Now I've used SharePoint over here. You could do this somewhere else as well. I've just used SharePoint because that was what Sue's requirements was over here. So do you now realize how much time we have saved for Sue just by automating this process? So it helped Sue. I had a fun time making it. I went ahead and shared that with you. So hopefully it helps for you. But as always, keep power automating.